Am I the a-hole for calling therapy a waste of time and saying we should stop going because it's not going to help us? Me, 16 female, my twin brother, 16 male, my mom and my mom's husband are in family therapy together. The therapist isn't bad. I talked to her alone twice before we did sessions with all of us in one room. But the reason we're in therapy and the way my mom especially is behaving, I just know it's a waste of time. My mom and her husband want me and my brother to change our last name to her husband's name and her name now. They are also hoping we'll let him adopt us. But the core focus is our name. They asked us 3 years ago when they first got married, and they tried to use guilt and bribery to make it happen. Guilt was mom saying we weren't really happy for her, and if we were, we'd accept having the same family name and let her move on from dad after being his widow for 7 years. Bribery was that her husband would pay for college, weddings, and a down payment on a house when we're 25, on top of getting a new car each, instead of old cars. Now the focus is on the fact my mom and him have a kid together, and mom is pregnant again. She said we should want the same name as our half-siblings, and we should want to be more easily identified as a family, and we should want to confuse our younger siblings way less. This has been the thing they have focused on in therapy, and they refuse to answer questions the therapist asks them. They talk over her. My brother and I were asked to leave the room 7 times in 2.5 months of appointments, because the therapist needed to speak to the adults alone. The second last time we went, she started saying therapy with her should end because they won't listen to her and do not want her to lead the sessions, but my mom and her husband were quick to backtrack and apologize. But they brought the same stuff up last time. And last time is when I said therapy is a waste of time and we should stop going because it's not going to help us. I told the therapist I will not change my mind. I do not want to change my name. I do not want the family name. I do not consider my mom's husband my father or even an important person in my life. I said, I think my mom has changed a lot since she got married, and I don't feel like she's as good of a mom as she used to be. I said, I will never accept having another man's name, and that he's no different than any other random dude off the street. I said having younger half-siblings changes nothing for me because we will never have the same dad, and we will always be a part of different families. I told them I would not work on making that a goal or try to compromise, so no adding his name to mine, etc. And I said the adults won't stop repeating themselves and talking over her, therapist, so I'm tired of us all wasting our time. My mom was so mad at me after therapy because her husband looked offended that I had said all that about him. But she was also mad that I thought I could end therapy when I'm just a kid. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I hope your mom hears what you are saying, but it doesn't sound like it. I am sorry, OP. Your mom and stepdad are acting like the Kool-Aid and wanting you and your twin to drink deeply and just be willing to go with the flow. Does your brother feel the same as you? A kid that is making more sense than the adults in the conversation. My brother feels the same as me. He would be way more aggressive about it. So he lets me do the talking sometimes, or he might go too far. But he is not open to compromise or working on building up a relationship that would make him willing to change his last name. He also doesn't see our mom's husband as any kind of parent or family figure. I may be overstepping by saying this. My apologies in advance. Unless your mom's husband is insanely rich, he is not going to be able to afford to pay for college, wedding, and house down payment for 4 kids. Either the bribery is fake, or it was left to the both of you in your father's will. You have every right not to change your last name. I would argue you are honoring your dad by keeping his last name. Your mom is using therapy as another means to achieve what she wants, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole at all. Therapy isn't a tool to bludgeon those with a different stance into compliance. Your mom and her husband refuse to listen, forcing you to vehemently speak your mind. Given how close you are to adulthood, I'd be wary of them escalating out of desperation. Yeah, I can see him doing it with how much he seems to like throwing his money around. Not the a-hole ask. Both of the adults, if they died, would they want to be erased from their children's lives like they are trying to do to your dad? Adoption changes the birth certificate for the new mom and/or dad. Or maybe have your therapist ask the question if it will cause less problems for you. Good luck, and less than 2 years before this is a moot point. Am I the a-hole for wanting my son to give me back the family business he can't take over? I, 74 male, have a son who is 47 male who got arrested for a DUI over 15 years ago, and he is unable to find a regular job. He has ADHD, is married, and had 2 daughters. I hired him in my small business, which is an office setting, many years ago to give him a job for his family. I have trained him, given him ample opportunity to be successful, and allowed him to hire multiple members of his wife's family and friends. I am still keeping the business afloat for him financially, and his wife works a well-paying full-time job. They bought almost $1 million house this year and spend money rapidly, like putting their kids in multiple travel sports, which cost several thousand a year. I am not one to tell them how to spend their money, but I'm providing context for the story. My son and I had an agreement that I would receive a percentage on any new clients we find, which I have found myself. I've had my business for over 50 years. I enjoy working, but being 74, I get tired and stressed easily, but it keeps my mind occupied. My wife and I recently purchased a small home, and my son came over to help me move a fridge. He started yelling and swearing at me this past week and told me I'm spending too much from the business with my wife and our new home. I hired some contractors to paint and put in new floors. He told me he was only giving me $9,000 of a $36,000 payment I am owed. My wife and I are on a fixed income. I told him to get out, and he had a big outburst, swearing, carrying on, and stressing me out. He doesn't even do his job, and I am always doing the brunt of the work. I have decided to take my business back and all my clients and work on my own. He can figure the rest out himself. I'm tired of his lack of commitment. His wife and him have also alienated my other children and family due to their awful drama and bullying tactics. They didn't attend a family event over the weekend we had, and honestly, it was the most fun I've had in a long time. My younger son and daughter both refuse to be around this son and wife due to how awful they have treated them. My daughter hasn't attended a holiday in 2 years because of this son and his wife, and she finally came this past weekend and we had a great time. Am I the a-hole to cut my son out of my business? Info. If your son wants to run a business, he can build one himself. He's not entitled to yours. That having been said, this stuff about you spending money out of the business to buy and renovate a house sounds very suspect. I don't know what country you live in, but there are laws against this sort of thing in the US. I'm using my own money on my house repairs. He was stating this, that I'm spending too much of my own money on house repairs. He was criticizing how my wife and I spend our money in general. He took 4 trips last year. My wife and I haven't been away at all. He has no right to tell you how to spend your money. It withhold any money from you. Cut him out of the business. He can find a new job. Presumably, he has experience to put on a resume from all the years you employed him. A single DUI does not make someone unemployable. That is an excuse. And ADHD is also not an excuse to not work. It is a reason you have to work harder. Nobody said life was fair. Time to suck it up. ADHD is challenging, but that is life. It doesn't stop me from being a lawyer. It shouldn't stop your son from working either. He needs to grow up. Enabling him is not helping him. Speak to a lawyer to make sure all of this is done properly. Also, consider updating your wills. And if you want to fully retire, then start looking at selling your business and don't sell to family. Not the a-hole. You are the a-hole for not attending to your business earlier. You don't need Reddit. You need a lawyer like yesterday. The longer you put this off, the worse things are going to get. Gather up all the paperwork about the transaction and what's happened since then, and take it to the lawyer to review. Be prepared to write a very large check to them. This is not going to be an easy fix. What he really needs is a forensic accountant. I bet $5 of my own money the kid has stolen everything he can. In this instance, not the a-hole, but soft. You are the a-hole for letting it get to this point. Also, even if it didn't feel like it, you chose him over your daughter for 2 years. Don't let that slide and work with her to make sure all is forgiven. Cut the leech out. Honestly, it looks like OP didn't give a fuck when his son was not pissing him off. He didn't give a fuck when his son and daughter-in-law were alienating his other children. It's only now when the son is affecting OP that he's willing to do something about it. Both OP and the son's family sound insufferable.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment. and subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos.